Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about an article I read on yahoo.com by someone named Joshua Tyler called How Star Trek Can Save Strange New Worlds in 6 Steps. And I want to read this article out to you and give you my thoughts on it because I've read through it and I pretty much agree with everything he's saying. And some of the stuff he's saying is stuff that I've been saying, and it's certainly stuff that other people have been saying in certain parts. But I think he just makes the best case for why these things should happen if the show is going to actually be good consistently. Essentially, I read through this and thought that it mirrored my own thoughts more closely than any other critique of Strange New Worlds has. So I just wanted to go through it with everyone and sort of add my 2 cents. And then maybe we can have a discussion in the comments about why these things that he's talking about need to be done if the show is going to be great versus just kind of okay or sometimes bad. Anyway, there are 6 steps according to Mr. Tyler, and the first one is narrow the ensemble. Now, this is not one that I had thought of myself, but I think he's right. He says, Strange New Worlds started out with a big primary cast, and it's gotten bigger every season, diluting the show. Captain Pike is theoretically the series lead, but his screen time is increasingly limited. Number 1 is barely on the show. Sam Kirk is a punchline, and Ortegas gets entire episodes without more than a single line. So I can't say that I've noticed that Captain Pike's time has shrunken. I will say that I don't think we get enough number 1, and I also am not a big fan of the Sam Kirk character because it's a punchline character, and I think it's unnecessary. I do like Ortegas, and I think in some episodes she only gets, a line or 2. And that's something that cuts both ways. Like, the more screen time they give to her, it also means taking some away from Pike and number 1. So I don't know how far you want to go into complaining about her not getting very many lines. But I happen to like the character, and I'm fine with her being present and getting screen time. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a negative thing that she doesn't always get lines. But anyway, let's go on because I think his larger point is really good. He says, instead, we spend time with Erica's little brother, who just showed up out of nowhere and is now in every episode. He has been so far since he's shown up. Captain Pike's girlfriend, Captain Battelle, now seems to live on the ship. She does. She wasn't in this last episode, but she's on the ship. And then he says, oh, look, now James Kirk is here again. Hey, let's add a new chief engineer, which they did, Pelia. Now let's bring in Scotty to be the chief engineer's assistant. What about a second helm officer named Mitchell, which they did, which I don't have an objection to myself. Let's give her a character arc. I don't really think they've done that yet, but certainly they might. Nurse Chapel has a new boyfriend. Let's add him to the cast too. It's overstuffed, and the show's storytelling ability is handicapped by the need to fit in so many characters. And I think he's right. I hadn't noticed it myself, but now that he's bringing it up, I think he's right. I can't say I noticed that Captain Pike was getting less screen time, but for me, it's not about the characters that don't get screen time. For me, it's about the stories that don't get told in place of the stories that do get told. They spent time telling us stories about Dr. Corby and Christine and Spock and that whole thing, and I don't think that was the best use of the show's time, especially since we only get 10 episodes a season. I think, the thing with Spock and Chapel ran its course in season 2, and then they brought Dr. Corby in to sort of get more life out of it, and then they walked away from it anyway. So I don't know why they did that. Certainly not because they needed him around to have the episode they had 2 weeks ago where they went on the planet and got Mr. Gamble's eyes blown off. They could have done that episode without him. So it just bothers me that they spent 2 episodes telling a story that involved this character for the sake of giving Spock the business. And I don't think they should have brought in the character because I don't think it was a worthwhile endeavor. The stories that they told on the back of that were not great. They were a lot of fun, but they weren't great stories. It caused them to further make Spock a romantic character, which we'll get to on this list, when they should stop doing that. And it created continuity errors because in the future, Spock doesn't know Dr. Corby. So it's just ridiculous. And he forgot how in the first 2 seasons they had to Pring on the show. And that created continuity errors, and that took time away from telling, stories about new aliens and new worlds and things of that nature. And so it's a bad thing that they do when they have too many characters. Anyway, his second point is connected to that. It says, tell stories about ideas, not characters. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has become a character-driven program. The show's scripts revolve around people, and when the writers run out of ideas, they just add more people. That's probably why the cast size has gotten so out of hand. The bigger problem with this is that Star Trek is not a character-driven franchise. It's supposed to be about ideas. All of the show's most beloved and iconic episodes are about big questions, deep understanding, and the nature of our universe and the people in it. I think he's right about that, but at the same time, I think, Next Gen certainly did a lot of work on the seven main characters. You got a lot of Geordi stories, you got a lot of Worf stories, you got a lot of Data stories. You had a lot of stories about all the cast really, and most of them were good. So I think character stories can work in Star Trek, but the ones that they're doing are not also about ideas. And that's the problem. And because they have such short seasons, they don't have a lot of episodes that are just about ideas, and that's where they're running into problems. So I think he's right about this. I would quibble with him on the details, but I think his main point on this is correct. He goes on to say that was what always made Star Trek special. It's what made it different from everything else. When your stories are character driven instead of idea driven, your show becomes like any other random television show and sometimes like a soap opera. So he's right about that. The soap opera thing was me. But yes, it becomes like any other random show. And that's something I've kind of said in my reviews, that it's just kind of generic. It's not Star Trek. It's not doing the Star Trek thing that it's supposed to be doing. He says, I don't need to know every detail of Nurse Chapel's history and personal life. I can get that on any random soap opera. The original series barely told us anything about the show's main characters. What we learned of them was a function of what happened along the way as part of their adventures. All I know about Deanna Troi is that she liked chocolate and once dated Will Riker. It was better that way. On the other hand, Strange New World spends a lot of time on weddings, bar hangouts, and endless dating. It's become as much a soap opera as it's an adventure series, and we already have plenty of soap operas on television. Speaking of romance, step 3, according to Joshua here, is stop involving Spock in romance, and I've been saying this since they've been involving him in romance. He says, because of a 60-second scene in the original Star Trek in which a Spock under the influence briefly expressed interest in Nurse Chapel, Star Trek Strange New Worlds has now subjected us to 3 seasons of non-stop Spock dating episodes. I think he's being a little hyperbolic here. It's more than that. Spock displayed interest in at least one other woman at one point when he was, again, under the influence of something. So he's exaggerating a little bit, but basically it was a rare thing on the original series for Spock to ever show interest in a woman, yet here they are making it like a constant thing. So he's right. He goes on to say it was cute in season 1 when he was dealing with his fiancée. And even then, I think they shouldn't have done it. But anyway, it got boring when he got involved with Christine, and now it's become ridiculous that he's screwing La'an just because they danced together once. Again, I don't think it's ridiculous. I've said that I like this particular relationship, while at the same time hating that it's Spock that's in it with her. I think their chemistry was undeniable, and, as a standalone thing, I think it works. But it really shouldn't be there, and if it went away, I wouldn't be sad. So, again, he's exaggerating a little bit, but yes, they've made Spock into this Lothario who seems to have this hugely developed romantic side to him, and it's just insane. I mean, there's time for them to change it, but they've got to get to it, and I think this is what he's talking about. He's saying, stop doing it. He goes on to say, the show's writers seem to take special delight in turning Star Trek's beacon of rationality and logic into a lovesick sap who can't stop making out with every woman who crosses his path. It's literally a key piece of every single Strange New Worlds episode now. Spock can't enter a turbolift, much less go on an away mission without getting involved in some romantic girl drama. It's too much. Even Captain Kirk, operating at peak male performance, wasn't this girl crazy. Again, he's being a little hyperbolic, but the main point is it's too much and they need to stop, and he's 100% right. For step 4, he says, stop being silly, think of the audience. He says, Star Trek has always had lighthearted moments. Spock and McCoy teasing each other at the end of original series episodes was always a highlight of the show. Now and then, they'd do a full episode which was a little goofy, like the one where Kirk has to learn to drive a stick shift on a gangster planet. Subsequent Star Trek shows and films followed that formula. They tried to hit a middle ground where they had serious stories with a few lighthearted moments. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has thrown all of that out the window. The show does only 10 episodes a season and spends 5 of them on joke episodes, farcical recreations, puppet pantomimes, and full-on musicals. It's like watching a high school drama club on a starship. Cut it out. If you want to do that many silly episodes, you need to increase your overall episode total. If you want to do 5 just kidding episodes, you need 24 episodes a season. You get one joke episode a season if you're only doing 10. Only one. Any more than that is self-indulgent. Strange New Worlds should be less interested in making sure the cast is having fun and more interested in making sure the audience is getting something out of it. That stopped happening shortly after the end of season 1, and I agree. In fact, I think even season 1 was uneven, but it wasn't as silly. So, I think he's 100% correct. If they're going to keep doing these many, goofy episodes, they need to give us more regular episodes like these last two, which were pretty good. He goes on to step 5, which he says is visit some planets, brighten up, and build. The strangest thing about Strange New Worlds is that it no longer visits any planets. Every once in a while, they beam down and run around inside a building for a minute, but that's about it. The first season was filled with exploration, and the second had a decent number of scenes on the ground, but the third season refuses to do anything it can't film in front of an LED wall, which mostly means ship interiors. Or if they're feeling spendy, building interiors that look like an obvious green screen situation. New planets mean new sets to build and new alien makeup designs to create. That's a lot of work. So instead of putting in some elbow grease, on the rare occasion the Enterprise crew does leave the ship, they usually end up on a dark and mostly empty environment where you can't see much. For instance, in an episode where they're supposed to investigate ancient ruins, they spend all their time in a dark, empty room with some vague stuff happening dimly lit in the distance. That's not fun. It's an annoying contrast to scenes on the ship, which are brightly lit, filled with color and contrast. That bright and hopeful look was initially the show's strength, a strength they've abandoned. Build some actual sets and stop relying on that damned LED wall so much. It's not fooling anyone, no matter how dimly you project it. Show us a weird colored sky, an alien sun, a huge stone temple where you actually build pillars and structures your actors can interact with and lean on. At this point, I'd settle for a papier-mâché boulder. I'm sure there's a budgetary excuse for all of it, but it's killing the show, and I'm here to tell you how to fix it, not how to afford it. And he then moves on to step 6, which is come up with your own ideas. He says Strange New Worlds has become increasingly less unique. The first season had a few original series callbacks mixed in with a few fresh stories. The second season skewed more toward cribbing from other people's notebooks. And the third season has had 5 straight episodes of ripping things off. The show now feels like it's outsourced all of its script writing to Grok. Season 3's first episode was a ripoff of The Next Generation's The Best of Both Worlds. The second brought in Trelane from the original series. The third was a hacky zombie episode. The fourth was a budget holodeck episode borrowed from The Next Generation's Dixon Hill Adventures. And the fifth is a knockoff of the movie Event Horizon with a bit of The Next Generation episode Conspiracy mixed in, as well as a little Indiana Jones, if you watch The Nitpicking Nerd. The show is called Strange New Worlds. New is the reason it exists. Do something new, something fresh, something that's all your idea. Take a risk. It's not too late to save Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I will just say quickly that I don't knock them for the zombie episode. Zombies are a thing, and so they did the zombie episode. I don't think that's such a transgression. And I don't think the premiere was a ripoff of The Best of Both Worlds. I think it was just a continuation of the end of season 2, which I guess means that you could say that the 2 episodes were together a ripoff of Next Gen, but I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. I guess he's right. So yeah, he makes a lot of good points. He finishes by saying, in theory, Strange New Worlds is done after season 5, but Trek's parent company, Paramount, recently completed a buyout of Skydance, and their new owners are reevaluating everything. If Strange New Worlds enters its 5th season with big ratings and strong fan support, it may have a future beyond season 5. But right now, the show is devolving. Not only will it end, but future fans will ignore and forget it in favor of better past Trek offerings. Star Trek fans want to love Strange New Worlds. Follow this roadmap, and they will. I would add one thing to this, which if you've watched the channel, you are not going to be surprised to hear, and that is come out and admit that whatever your intentions were at the beginning, what you've actually created is a show that takes place in a completely different universe from the original series, because there have been so many contradictions and so many departures from lore and canon that it can't possibly be the same universe. I think not admitting that or not coming out and saying that that's where they've ended up, regardless of what their intentions were to have it line up with the original series, is holding the show back from feeling to the audience like a great show. I think it's getting in its own way by not admitting that it takes place in a separate universe. I think they really need to do that. I think that's step 7. But I think this is a solid article. I think everything he said is correct with a couple of nitpicks here and there. And, as I said, this is some stuff that I've been saying. It's stuff that other people have been saying, and I think that the producers really need to take a cue from Joshua here, who wrote this article. But that's really all I want to say. I would really like to have a discussion with everyone in the comments, so if you have some thoughts, go ahead and put them down there. For now, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.